I went back to my childhood house the week my father died. That night, something in the attic started calling my name, and it sounded exactly like my brother, who had been dead for 20 years. The lawyers said I would eventually have to decide what to do with it. Sell it, rent it, keep it. I told him I would think about it. But before making any decision, I wanted to see the place again, properly. So I drove there that afternoon and decided to spend the night. It had been years since I had slept in that house. I had only returned a few times as an adult, usually for short visits, and even then I never stayed long. The place always felt different than I remembered. Smaller in some ways, but heavier in others, like the walls had been quietly holding on to years of things that were never said out loud. By the time night came, the house was quiet in an eerie way. Old houses settle differently after midnight. The sounds change. The quiet feels deeper somehow. I must have fallen asleep eventually, because the first time I heard my name that night, I was fast asleep. At least, I think I was. The house was completely silent, except for the faint creak of the old place settling around me. Then, something whispered my name. Daniel. The sound was so soft, it felt like it had happened inside my head. I didn't open my eyes. For a moment, I thought it was part of a dream. The last few weeks had been full of strange dreams anyway. Ever since my father died, sleep had been uneven. I would wake up in the middle of the night, thinking I had heard something, or thinking someone had called me from another room. Grief does that. It fills silence with things that aren't there. So I stayed still in the dark, staring at nothing. A few seconds passed. Then the voice said my name again. Daniel. My eyes opened immediately. This time, the sound hadn't come from inside my head. It had come from somewhere in the house, from above. I sat up slowly in the bed. The room was dark except for a faint strip of moonlight coming through the window. For several seconds I listened. Nothing. Just silence. I told myself it was the stress of the past week. Losing my father had been heavier than I expected. He had been the last person connected to this house, the last person who remembered it the way I did. Without him, the place felt different, empty in a way that didn't belong to furniture or walls. I was about to lie back down when the voice came again. This time, it was unmistakable. Daniel. It came from the hallway ceiling, from the attic. The sound moved through me like cold water, because the voice sounded exactly like my brother Liam, but he had been dead for 20 years. I sat there in the bed for a long moment before standing up. I walked slowly toward the door. When I stepped out into the hallway, it was completely dark. At the center of the ceiling was the attic hatch, the same wooden panel with the pull cord hanging down. When we were kids, Liam used to climb up there constantly until my father finally nailed the hatch shut so neither of us could open it anymore. But the nails weren't there now. The cord hung freely. I stood under it, listening. Nothing moved above the ceiling. No footsteps, no shifting boards, just silence. For a moment, I almost convinced myself I had imagined the voice. Then, something moved above me. One careful step across the attic boards. The sound traveled slowly across the ceiling. Liam's voice came again, quieter now. "Daniel, come look." That was something he used to say when we were kids, whenever he found something interesting outside. A frog under a rock, or an old bottle in the woods. Anything that felt like a discovery. I stood there in the dark hallway, listening. My heart had started beating faster without me noticing when it happened. The way it does when your body understands something before your mind does. The house was silent again. No footsteps, no shifting boards, no voice. Still, I couldn't go back to bed. My hand reached up and pulled the cord before I had really decided to. The hatch folded down. The ladder slid out in sections until it touched the hallway floor. I grabbed the flashlight from the kitchen counter and started climbing. The attic smelled like dust and old wood. The beam of the flashlight moved across beams, insulation, and the floorboards between them. The place looked empty, exactly the way it had the last time I had been up there years ago. I stepped onto the boards and walked slowly toward the far side of the attic. No one was there, but near the old boxes along the wall, something caught the edge of the flashlight beam. A photograph. It was lying on the floor. I picked it up and brushed the dust away. It was a picture of Liam and me standing in the backyard. We couldn't have been older than 8 or 9. I didn't remember ever taking that picture, and I had never seen it in any of the family albums either. For a moment I just stared at it, waiting for the memory to come back. It didn't. The flashlight beam drifted slowly across the attic again. Still, nothing. Just empty boards and old insulation. Eventually, I told myself it was nothing. I turned back toward the ladder, deciding to go back downstairs. That was when I heard the ladder move. A slow wooden creak. The ladder was folding upward, slowly lifting toward the ceiling, like someone below was pushing it closed. I grabbed the ladder and forced it back, then I climbed down. When my feet touched the hallway floor, I pushed the hatch closed. The panel slid back into place against the ceiling. The house went quiet again. I turned away and started walking toward my room. I had taken only a few steps when something scraped softly above the ceiling. I stopped. The sound moved again, directly above me, right over the hatch. The wooden panel shifted. The hatch lowered a few inches. A hand slipped out through the opening. It hung there in the dim hallway light, pale, still. The fingers curled slowly over the edge of the panel. Then the voice came from the attic, soft, weak, exactly the way I remembered it. "Daniel, don't leave me alone up here." Something inside me broke. I ran. I grabbed my keys and rushed out the front door. I backed out of the driveway and kept driving. I didn't stop until the house was miles behind me. That was months ago. The lawyer still calls sometimes, asking what I plan to do with the place. The truth is, I don't know. But I know one thing for certain. I will never go back there.